We sung these words, "I will praise you, Lord, for you have rescued me." I invite you to join me and my classmate, Emmett Nolan, who is behind me, who read the gospel for us, in praising God and the Blessed Mother this day for celebrating 24 years of priesthood. It was 24 years ago, this very day, at this altar, to which we ordained the priesthood of Jesus Christ. We're both very Irish, Flanagan and Nolan, and I cannot help but be emotional as we celebrate this Eucharist, recalling that first day of an incredible journey of ministry in our church, and how we have been given the extraordinary opportunity to evangelize and be evangelized by the people of God. At the same time, we recall all those people that were here that are now home with God, and those folks that are present with us as we gather around this Eucharistic table. At the close of the Second Vatican Council's third session, Pope Paul VI, using a phrase from St. Ambrose of Milan, identified Mary as Mother of Christ and Mother of the Church, and said, "As Mary has given birth to Christ, so too does the Church give birth to her beloved Son." When we consider what the Church has been for us in making known this Jesus, we recognize that Mary truly is the Mother of Christ, the Mother of the Church. Some weeks ago, when we were celebrating Mother's Day, I picked up a couple of cards, one for my sister and one for a friend of mine who just became a mother. And I don't know if it's your experience, but you go to the card store and you try to figure out the one that best fits the individual. And so some of the words that came up were beloved mother, gracious woman, valiant lady. But the words that the Church uses with regards to what the Church uses about itself, when it speaks about itself, is threefold. Is that the Church is one that gives life, one that educates, nourishes, and sustains. Gives life. So in my priesthood, I've been privileged to work at St. John's and Niagara University, and have stayed in touch with students, as many of you who had opportunities to work with young people. And one of the gifts that I've had is connecting with them as they move along in their lives. And so just recently, I had a Sunday off. Now, I usually help out in a parish called St. Christopher's in Baldwin on Sundays, but I had the Saturday night Mass, and so I had a free Sunday. So I called my friends who were in New York City, former students of mine from Niagara, and I said, let's get together for a nice walk and brunch. First of all, they were surprised that I was inviting them to a walk, given my size. And then second of all, brunch in the middle of the day. And the wife was very clear, and she says, "What orbit do you live in?" And I didn't quite understand what she meant. I said, "What do you mean?" "It's Sunday. It's church day." Now, I think it may be your experience as much as mine, but young people are not as committed, perhaps, as some senior folks to our church and that steady commitment. But it comes over time. It comes over time. So this was a family of four, mom and dad and two of their daughters, who had a off and on relationship with the church. But now, since they moved to Lower Manhattan, they become a member of St. Peter's and Barclay Street. You know it well from your experience of learning about St. Elizabeth Ann Seton. That's where she worshiped when she came to New York. This church has become their life. And so that Sunday, they couldn't meet me because the kids had to go to religious education and they had to go to church. Church became their life. Life became church for them. In the second instance, about the church as an educator, one of the phenomenal tools of evangelization that we've been using with the young that has been very successful have been these events called Grilling with God, or Theology on Tap. And I know it's active here in the Archdiocese, but it's amazing the number of people that come out. And it's opportunity for people to be challenged by what the church teaches, because we know that what the church teaches and what culture teaches at times can go radically counter. And so the church as a teacher offers young people and us the opportunity to grow in knowledge, wisdom, and faith. The final image is the nourisher and sustainer. So, Father Aidan Rooney is here also from Bolivia. He's a missionary. He's a member of our province, but he's also from Bolivia. We all had the same homiletics teacher, Father Richard Kehoe. Father Richard Kehoe, who comes here once in a while to do the announcements and hear confessions, would often speak to us about, you may not get any other homily correct. You may not connect with people on any level on a Sunday, but there are 3 moments, he would say, 3 moments you cannot avoid connecting. Hatching, matching, and dispatching. Hatching, matching, and dispatching. Birth, marriage, and death. And those are the moments when the church, like a mother, is so present to God's people. We recognize that. My first assignment was up the street at Immaculate Conception, 1992. And I was amazed. The neighborhood had changed. People had moved to the suburbs. But people from 40 to 50 years ago would bring their beloved parents and grandparents back to that church. Why? Because that was the church that nourished them. That was the church that gave them life. That was the church that educated them and sustained them. And now they were depending on that church to give them Christ at the end of their lives. So, my friends, as we call upon Mary as the mother of Christ and the mother of the church, we are reminded of 3 images of our church: as the one who gives life, the one who educates, and the one who nourishes and sustains. Now, in a perfect world, the church would be wonderfully perfect. But we recognize we struggle at times. We limp instead of run. But perhaps one of the great examples I was given by one of our older priests when I was assigned to St. John the Evangelist, the Apostle, in Alexander City, Alabama, not too soon after ordination. And the priest there, John Nicholas, who had served for many years down the street as pastor at Immaculate, was in the midst of First Communion. And the DRE, they called him the DRE at the time, was so concerned that the children not move out of their seats, that everything's in place for the First Communion. And somehow mayhem struck. Kids started coming up the aisle. Parents started taking pictures. In those days, they didn't have the small little cameras. They had these big things that were flashing things. And the DRE was going all sorts of crazy. And said to the pastor, "You got to do something about this." And he just sat back and says, "You know what? This is wonderful. It doesn't get any better than this. This is church." My friends, as we consider Mary, Mother of Christ, Mother of the Church, let us consider our renewal, our rededication to being church, to being people who, like Mary, give life, educate, nourish, and sustain.